Imagine a hero, someone who fought for our country. That's Marco. He was born in Venezuela, but he loves America. He came here and worked hard to become a citizen. After becoming a citizen, he joined the army to protect our freedom. Marco was a great soldier. He did everything he was asked to do, and he did it well. After serving his time, he left the army. But he didn't want to stop helping his country. So he got a job at the Pentagon. The Pentagon is like the headquarters for the people who protect America. Marco's new job was important. He used his skills from the army to help keep our country safe. He worked with other brave men and women. Everyone at the Pentagon knew Marco was a good person. He was always on time, always ready to work, and always smiling. He had a special pass to get into the Pentagon because he was trusted. He had a secret clearance because of the important work he did. He felt proud to be there, helping America in a new way. He liked his co-workers, and they liked him. He was living the American dream. One ordinary Tuesday morning, everything changed. Marco was at his desk, working on an important project. He was thinking about his family and planning a weekend trip. Suddenly, two men in dark jackets walked into his office area. They looked serious and official. Marco didn't know who they were, but he felt a little nervous. The men walked straight to his desk. Marco Rodriguez, one of them asked. Marco nadie surprised. We need you to come with us, the man said. Marco was confused. What's this about, he asked. The men didn't answer. They just showed him a badge that said, ICE. I stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Marco knew they were the people who deal with immigration issues. Marco's heart started to beat faster. He knew he was a citizen. He had all the right papers. But he was still scared. The ICE agents told him he was being detained. Detained means they were taking him into custody. Right there, in front of all his coworkers. People stared in shock. Marco felt embarrassed and confused. He kept saying, there must be some mistake. But the agents didn't listen. They took him away. The reason for Marco's arrest was a terrible mistake. A computer database had old information about him. This database is like a big list of people, and it helps the government keep track of who is who. But sometimes, the information isn't correct. In Marco's case, the database still showed him as someone who wasn't a citizen. It didn't have his updated information about becoming a citizen and joining the army. Because of this error, ICE thought Marco was in the country illegally. It was a huge problem. Marco had done everything right. He had followed all the rules. He had become a citizen, served his country, and gotten a good job. But a simple mistake in a computer almost ruined his life. The error in the database didn't know about Marco's special clearance either. He had proven he was trustworthy. He had passed background checks. But none of that mattered because of the wrong information in the system. It was like the computer was saying he was a bad guy, even though he was a hero. It showed how easily a mistake could cause big trouble, even for someone who had done nothing wrong. It made no sense. He was a citizen. He had papers. How could this happen? Let's go back to Marco's journey. He came to America when he was young. He missed his home in Venezuela, but he saw America as a land of opportunity. He studied hard in school and learned English. He always dreamed of becoming an American citizen. He worked different jobs to make money and help his family. He knew becoming a citizen wouldn't be easy, but he was determined. He took classes to learn about American history and government. He wanted to understand what it meant to be an American. When he finally became a citizen, it was one of the happiest days of his life. He felt like he truly belonged. He wanted to give back to the country that had given him so much. That's why he decided to join the army. In the army, Marco learned discipline and teamwork. He made friends from all over the country. He served with honor and pride. He was proud to wear the uniform and defend America. After his service, he used his skills and experience to get the job at the Pentagon. He felt like he was still serving his country, just in a different way. He never forgot where he came from, but he was proud to be an American. After being taken from the Pentagon, Marco was brought to an ICE detention center. It was a scary place. There were high fences, locked doors, and many people in uniforms. Marco felt like he was in a prison, even though he had done nothing wrong. He was asked many questions about his immigration status. He showed them his citizenship papers, his army discharge papers, and his Pentagon ID. But the ICE officers didn't seem to believe him. They said their computer showed something different. Marco felt helpless. He was locked up with people he didn't know. He couldn't call his family or his lawyer. He didn't know how long he would be there. He worried about his job and what his coworkers thought. He kept thinking about the mistake in the computer. The food was not good, and the beds were hard. He missed his family and his comfortable home. He tried to explain his situation to the other people who were detained, but they were all dealing with their own problems. Marco felt alone and scared. He just wanted to go home and have everything go back to normal. The whole experience was like a bad dream. Marco's wife, Sophia, was at work when she got the call. One of Marco's co-workers told her what happened. Sophia couldn't believe it. She knew Marco was a citizen. She had been with him every step of the way. Sophia rushed home and started looking for Marco's citizenship papers. She found them in a safe place. She also found his army discharge papers and his Pentagon ID. She gathered everything she could think of to prove he was who he said he was. She tried calling ICE, but it was hard to get through. When she finally spoke to someone, they weren't very helpful. They just told her they were following the law. Sophia felt like she was hitting a wall. She didn't know what to do. She told their children, Maria and David, what had happened. They were scared and confused. They loved their dad and couldn't imagine him being in trouble. Maria started to cry. David tried to be brave, but Sophia could see the worry in his eyes. Sophia promised them she would do everything she could to bring their dad home. She wouldn't give up. Getting Marco released was a difficult process. Sophia learned that fixing the database error wasn't as simple as showing his papers. She needed to navigate a complicated system with lots of rules. She had to fill out many forms and make many phone calls. Each call took a long time, and she often got transferred to different people who couldn't help her. She felt like she was going in circles. She also needed to find a lawyer who could help them. Lawyers cost money, and Sophia and Marco didn't have a lot of extra money. But they knew they needed someone who understood the law and could fight for Marco's rights. The lawyer explained that they had to prove Marco was a citizen beyond any doubt. They needed to gather more documents and find people who could vouch for him. It was a slow and frustrating process. Meanwhile, Marco was still in detention. He was missing work, and his family was worried sick. Sophia felt like time was running out. She knew she had to do everything she could to get him home as soon as possible. The red tape seemed endless. Every step forward felt like a struggle. News of Marco's detention started to spread. People who knew him at the Pentagon were shocked. They couldn't believe that someone who had served the country could be treated this way. Some of Marco's former army buddies heard about it and started making calls. They contacted their old commanders and told them what was happening. They knew Marco was a good man, and they wanted to help him. One of Marco's supervisors at the Pentagon was very upset. She knew how valuable he was to the team. She contacted some high-ranking officials and explained the situation. She told them that Marco had a security clearance and was a trusted employee. Slowly, people in positions of power started to pay attention. They realized that a mistake had been made and that something needed to be done. Military leaders and federal officials began to speak out on Marco's behalf. They put pressure on ICE to investigate the matter and correct the error. It was the start of a turning point in Marco's case. Finally, it seemed like someone was listening. As Marco's case gained attention, his lawyer started talking to reporters. The story was soon on the news. People all over the country were hearing about what happened to Marco. They were angry that a veteran and a citizen could be treated this way. Newspapers wrote articles about the database error and how it led to Marco's detention. TV news showed pictures of Marco and his family. Social media was full of comments from people supporting him. The public outcry put even more pressure on ICE. They had to respond to the growing criticism. Politicians started asking questions about the case. They wanted to know why this happened and what was being done to fix it. Marco's lawyer filed a lawsuit against ICE, claiming they had violated his rights. The lawsuit brought even more attention to the case. It forced ICE to defend their actions in court. The media attention and legal challenges made it harder for ICE to ignore the mistake. They knew they had to act quickly to resolve the situation. Every day that Marco remained in detention made the situation worse for them. Finally, after weeks of detention, ICE announced that they had corrected the database error. They admitted that Marco was a citizen and that he should never have been detained. They said they were sorry for the mistake. Sophia got the call from Marco's lawyer. She couldn't believe it. She started to cry tears of joy. She ran to tell Maria and David. They were so happy they jumped up and down. Marco was released from the detention center that afternoon. We walked out. Sophia and the kids were waiting for him. They ran to hug him. It was an emotional reunion. Everyone was crying. Marco was thin and tired, but he was so happy to be home. He hugged Sophia tightly and kissed the kids. He thanked his lawyer and everyone who had supported him. He said he was grateful to be back with his family and to be a free man. It was the best day of their lives. They were finally together again. He promised himself he would never forget what happened. After Marco got home, things started to change. ICE apologized to him and his family. They said they would investigate what went wrong and make sure it didn't happen again. The Pentagon also apologized for the embarrassment and stress Marco had experienced. The government launched an investigation into the database error. They wanted to find out how the mistake happened and why it wasn't corrected sooner. They also wanted to see if other people had been affected by similar errors. Some politicians proposed new laws to protect legal immigrants from being wrongly detained. They wanted to make sure that government databases were accurate and up-to-date. They also wanted to provide better training for ICE agents. Marco was offered his job back at the Pentagon. His co-workers welcomed him with open arms. They were happy to have him back on the team. Marco was grateful for their support. Even though he was glad to be back, Marco knew that his life would never be the same. He had been through a terrible experience, and it had changed him. He decided to use his experience to help others. He wanted to make sure that no one else had to go through what he had gone through. He felt it was his duty. Marco's story raised important questions. People started to wonder if this could happen to anyone. They worried about racial profiling, which is when someone is treated unfairly because of their race or where they come from. Some people thought Marco was targeted because he was Venezuelan American. Others questioned how accurate government databases really are. If a simple mistake could lead to someone being wrongly detained, what other mistakes were out there? They wondered if the government was doing enough to protect people's information. Many veterans were upset by what happened to Marco. They felt like he had been let down by the country he had served. They worried about how other veterans and legal immigrants were being treated. Marco's case showed that even people who have done everything right can still face problems with immigration laws. It sparked a national conversation about fairness, justice, and the importance of protecting the rights of all citizens and legal residents. People started asking, how can we make sure this never happens again? The incident made everyone think about how we treat people in our country. It was a wake-up call. Marco decided he couldn't just go back to his old life. He felt like he had a responsibility to speak out. He started talking to reporters and sharing his story. He wanted people to understand what had happened to him and why it was important. He joined an organization that helped immigrants and veterans. He volunteered his time to help others navigate the immigration system. He wanted to make sure that no one else had to face the same challenges he had faced. He also started talking to politicians about immigration reform. He shared his ideas for how to make the system fairer and more accurate. He wanted to help create laws that protected the rights of all citizens and legal residents. Marco became a voice for those who couldn't speak for themselves. He used his experience to advocate for change. He traveled around the country, sharing his story and inspiring others to take action. He wanted to make sure that America lived up to its promise of being a land of opportunity and justice for all. He became a symbol of resilience and hope. He turned a negative experience into a positive force for change. The Venezuelan American community was deeply affected by Marco's story. Many people felt afraid and worried that something similar could happen to them. They had always believed that if they followed the rules and became citizens, they would be safe. But Marco's case showed that even that wasn't always enough. Some people organized rallies and protests to show their support for Marco and to call for immigration reform. They wanted to make sure that the government treated all legal immigrants with respect and fairness. Other immigrants shared their own stories of facing discrimination and unfair treatment. They wanted to raise awareness of the challenges that many immigrants face in America. Many people reached out to Marco and his family to offer their support. They sent letters, emails, and gifts. They They wanted to let them know that they weren't alone. Marco's case brought the Venezuelan-American community closer together. They realized that they needed to support each other and work together to protect their rights. They became more active in their communities and more involved in politics. They wanted to make sure that their voices were heard. Marco's experience reminded them that they had to stand up for what was right. Years later, Marco still works at the Pentagon. He's proud of his service to his country. He hasn't forgotten what happened to him, but he doesn't let it define him. He uses his experience to make a difference. He often thinks about the people he met in the detention center. He wonders how they're doing and if they ever got their problems resolved. He hopes that his advocacy has helped to make things better for them. Marco's children are grown up now. They're proud of their dad and what he's accomplished. They've learned from his example to stand up for what's right and to never give up hope. Sophia is still by his side, supporting him every step of the way. She's his rock and his inspiration. She believes in him and his mission. Marco knows that there's still a lot of work to be done, but he's committed to continuing his fight for justice and equality. He believes that America can be a better place for everyone, regardless of their background or where they come from. He knows that with hard work and determination, anything is possible. He is still living the American dream, but now he's making sure that dream is possible for everyone. Marco often reflects on his experience. He says it taught him a lot about the importance of fighting for what's right, even when it's hard. He learned that one person can make a difference, and that even small acts of kindness can have a big impact. He also says that it strengthened his faith in America. Despite the injustice he faced, he still believes in the American dream and the promise of opportunity for all. He knows that America isn't perfect, but he believes that it's a country worth fighting for. Marco is proud to be an American. He's grateful for the opportunities he's been given, and he's committed to giving back to his community and his country. He wants to make sure that future generations have the same opportunities he had. He often says that his experience made him a better person. It taught him empathy, compassion, and resilience. It gave him a purpose in life. He knows that he can't change the past, but he can shape the future. Marco's story is a reminder that even in the face of adversity, hope and determination can prevail. It's a story about the power of the American spirit and the importance of standing up for what's right. He is a true American hero,